let's talk about what this thing is, by the way. This is the map of capital, and it's tiny because we don't have a lot of detail yet. And my goal today, let's what do we have here? We have recent history, here's some events, but here let's talk about what are the power centers. And I feel like this is going to be boring and frustrating. So, but even though I thought that, even though I thought this, it would be more fun and more entertaining for folks to do some of the other things I'd like to do as far as world building capital, I could do this offline and kind of do all the grunt work and hard work. I thought, no, let's see if we can not make it fun, but expose the fact that sometimes world building is work and it's not always exciting. What I want to do today is I want to figure out what these power centers are. And we may not get there, and we may just give up. This is a map of a game called Diplomacy. I've played quite a lot of Diplomacy. I assume if you're here, you've all watched the Diplomacy video, so you understand the basic principles of the thing. And what I went and did was I just went online, and there's a map of topologically. This is topologically identical to the map of Diplomacy. And there are other versions of the map of Diplomacy that are literally the same layout, just with the pieces moved around, but all the connections all stay the same, right? We understand that, you know, the way that topologically a mug and a donut are identical. This is the map of Diplomacy, identical to the original. We just moved a bunch of stuff around. So the different colors, which you can see my mouse here, the different colors, yellow, green, purple, or, you know, fuchsia, purple, red, blue, orange, and flesh, are represent the areas of the city that the different factions control. All of the blue is water. The flash colors are all of the places that the prince used to control, the prince's house used to control before the prince's house fell. And so now it's kind of up for grabs. So there are 56 land regions on this map and 19 sea regions. There are 34 supply centers. There are 34 power centers here. And I'd like to figure out what the hell they are. These guys have one more. So there's like 1, 2, 3, 4. They each have 3, but these guys have 4. So these guys start off, but they also have way more ways to be attacked. That's the reason they have 4. They have 4. Yellow has 4, but it's hard for them to hold on to that 4. The question is, what makes these little dots valuable? What makes it so that if you control one, like, so there are neighborhoods or districts, right, where there are, oh, that's interesting. There are districts where people might live or people might work, but there's not a power center there. And then there are places where there is a power center, and that is one of the, you know, whoever controls the spice controls the universe. Each of these factions has 3 power centers. Yellow has 4, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 currently unclaimed. They used to belong to the prince's house, and now the city's kind of in disarray, and when the clock starts, when the game starts, it's gonna be a mad scramble to see which of these factions can grab up. So before the factions go to war, there's this great kind of pre-war moment, right, where the old empire has fallen, and all the duchies, you know, or baronies or whatever, and they start grabbing up all these things, and the act of, so in other words, you know, purple can take this space, or probably take this space. Blue or green are gonna have to talk about this space. Hey, are you gonna take this? And green's gonna say, well, why don't you go take this one over here? And blue's gonna say, well, because I've got red over here. And then green's gonna say, yeah, but there's a whole fucking ocean thing between them and you, and they're not gonna be able to just attack that. And so you'll have, warning, let me have this, and I'll help you get this. And that's how diplomacy works. And hopefully that, if I've done a good job, that conversation actually made a little bit of sense. So that's the first stage of the City of the Great Game. The first stage of the Great Game is, all power centers are equally valuable. And so for those of you who missed the last video, the order of events are, the Duke of House Valletta dies under mysterious circumstances. Somebody had a cool idea, but I don't remember what it was. That house was in charge of, and before this, they weren't really considered one of the major players because they just did their duty and collected taxes and distributed them among the different houses and did what the king's council, the prince and his council decided what to do with the money. But they were the tax collectors. His wife, the Duchess Leonora, enacts a powerful ritual to revive her dead husband. It fails. And the unhappy side effect, which she did not intend, but she knew was on the table, is all the people in that district died. And there's now 3,000 undead there. But and that converted her into a vampire lord. So she used to be a human being. Now she's a vampire lord. Now she's immortal, and she's the dead lady ruling over a dead city. But they still collect the taxes. That's her job. That's the fact that as far as the law is concerned, House Valletta has not fallen. House Valletta still has a ruler. There's nothing in the, in fact, there's precedent that rulers can be undead going back thousands of years. So then the prince, because she's collecting the taxes and refuses to deliver the money to the prince and his privy council, the city is starved of cash. And the reason she's not delivering the money, there's multiple reasons, but one of them is she failed to bring her husband back from the dead. She's trying to motivate the other lords of capital to come up with their own solution, and at which point she will, because what she says is, I've assumed my husband's duties. When he returns, the money will be dispersed. So she's collecting the taxes, but their city is not getting them. So the prince, desperate for cash, admits 3 of the guilds into the nobility in exchange for these huge payouts that help keep the city running because they're so rich. The guilds have so much more money than the noble houses do. And then, maybe because of that, maybe for other reasons, the prince is assassinated, and now it's Saturday, and here we are. This is how my brain works. I don't know how useful it will be for a stream, but before, I'm not just going to sit, so we're talking about what are these power centers. I'm not just going to sit down and start listing power centers because my experience as a designer tells me that I'm going to run out of ideas way before I get to 34. This patch is pretty good. I'll come up with 5 or 6 and stop. And so my experience as a designer tells me that instead of just sitting down and just listing everything I can think of, I need to understand what are the categories of power centers. At a high level, what makes something a power center? So now you're beginning to understand the scope of what we're trying to do this stream. And future streams I think will be more entertaining because we'll be able to do more fun stuff. But now we have the hard work of what makes us. So typically a power center probably in the real world is a manufacturing center, right? Like a factory. I'm not even gonna factory, manufacturing center. So normally a little black dot is a place where you can make tanks, or a place where you can make boats, or a place where you can make guns, because these are the things you need to fight wars. Right? But we are dealing in a much more abstract concept. We're talking about a city, and so a power center can be something like a church or even a theater. Right? But it's the kind of thing where if we control this, we have power. Factories, manufacturing centers, military places, law places, definitely cultural places, right? But also knowledge and information. Oh, also, hang on a minute. No, how do you spell knowledge? Knowledge and information. God damn it. I can't type while people are watching. So, I mean, religious institutions are cultural institutions. So you have cultural institutions. Well, let's throw religion in there. Because definitely there are several, but also there's civic stuff. Right? Like waste treatment and sewers and stuff like that. Although I don't think a sewer is a power center. We've got a pretty good list. Factory and manufacturing center. We can probably, now that this is pretty typical, this pretty typical design, bog standard design 101 is as you start making your list of categories, you don't know what they're going to be. And so I broke out factory and manufacturing center. But then as I started to go down the list and started to kind of understand what the categories were, I go back and I go, oh, actually, I think factory and manufacturing center. My first instinct was correct. And these are the same thing. All right, so we're just gonna go. Does that make sense? Military, law, cultural, knowledge, financial. So let's see. Civic would also include stuff like transport. So we need to come up with 34 things, but now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We've got 9 categories. And suddenly now this is a solvable problem. So we went from, not that long ago, me personally feeling like 34 was going to be tough, and just listing out 34 things would take a while and I would run out of ideas, to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 categories where if I come up with 3 or 4 instances of each of these categories, we're done. Boom. Suddenly it's a quite solvable problem. This is design. This is taking huge, big, complex games and breaking them down into tiny little bits. We may need to figure out which factions govern which places. Although, I don't know, I think it might be fun. My instincts tell me there may have to be some kind of back and forth. We may need to, like, first figure out what these are. So this is my thinking on this, right? There's kind of 2 ways to cross the finish line on this part of the development. We can either figure out who owns these different, you can't see my hand, who owns these different places. So does House Valletta, the Dead City, control here? In which case, what are the kinds of things that the Dead City would control based on what we know? But my instincts tell me that's the wrong way to do it because that's not how the city developed. These are going to be spread all over. The actual power centers, of which these are just the categories, are going to be, it's going to be a mishmash. It's going to be a disorganized, grabastic collection of amphibian shit. Because that's how cities work. And then the factions come in and they start kind of, so each faction is going to have some quasi-organized collection of these. So I think what we want to do is come up with the list first and then figure out, you know, where they are and then figure out which houses are in control of them. Does that make sense? So the shipyard is definitely one of those places, but also, you know, a textile mill. That obviously there's lots of places in the city where, so this is probably like, you know, it's not a building. It's almost like a whole district, right? And if you control, you know, people, what are the things that people need or want that you have to make a lot of? Actually, slaughterhouses. I don't know if these are the right. I don't know if these are the, but you know, food, controlling the. Oh, I can't. I gotta be careful where I move my stuff. Is it possible for there to be 2 competing power centers? So I think what Ready Player One is asking is, can there be, is each dot unique? No, I don't think so. I think there could definitely be more than one of any given thing. But having there be, you know, if this is the major, oh, you know what? I think controlling the paper, controlling, you know, who makes the ships, textile mill, but slaughterhouses, like this is where the food is made, tanneries. And these things might not be, it's a mistake to imagine that each one of these has to be somehow vital to the lifeblood of the city. They can just be things that make a lot of money, right? So if I have one of these things, if I control one of the, if I control the city's major tanneries, suddenly I've got tons of cash, right? And now I can do things like buy troops, buy soldiers, right? Or buy bribes. So it doesn't necessarily have to be something that's critical to the lifeblood of the city. And many of these things aren't going to be. But a rendering farm, which is where you get fats and oils, these are super, super important to the everyday operation of the city. I don't think that Capital has a, well, maybe it does have a foundry. Maybe it does have a foundry. I was going to say, I think they probably import their metals from a nearby population of dwarves. But that's no fun. Let's put the dwarves in the city. Yeah. So we now have way more manufacturing centers than we need. So what are some military power centers that we might think of? Like, what do armies, not cops, but what do armies need? Like a prison would be down here. And I don't know that a prison is actually a, would be a power center. Let's see, well, definitely the gates right? The gates of the city, there may be all sorts of walls and gates, and who controls them controls flow of traffic. Actually, Gucci stains, that's a good point. A military academy. Military academy is exactly the kind of, an armory, yeah, but I have the feeling that there would not be one big centralized armory. Barracks, certainly. Gates, I feel like gates and watchtowers are the same thing. But let's put watchtowers out here. I feel like a watchtower is not going to be enough. So, Ashpocalypse just said courthouse. That's obviously not military. Well, not for us. I guess there's a military court. People are talking about stables. I think stables is transport. Definitely stuff like, somebody said the Prince's Palace. I definitely think that like the manor houses of the noble, so that might be civic. And there could be a lot of these. There could be one, there could be seven, there could be one of these for each thing. Yeah, okay, so library is definitely knowledge information. So I think like a hall of records. This is super important, right? A hall of records is important because it shows who owns what. Like people forget that one of the reasons, they don't forget, they didn't know. One of the reasons the guys, those gangsters that rose to prominence in that like Bonnie and Clyde are a reference to, or actually were members of. One of the things they were doing was it was the Depression, and they would go rob banks and then they would burn the mortgage records. So that suddenly now these people, there was no record of who owned their house and they didn't have to pay. So that was one of the reasons they became heroes. Cultural theater, obviously. Let's see, we were talking about military, right? The gates that divide up the city. And military includes, I would say, like, city guard. So let's put jails in here, because jails are also where the cops hang out. So like a police station, like watch house, right? The watch house, which I think is maybe what people meant when they were talking about watchtowers. Graveyard? That's a good question. Is a graveyard? Certainly, let's say the mausoleums, right? Not that there's more than one, but like obviously people care about where their ancestors are buried. Religion, definitely. Cathedrals. And there could just be 3 or 4 different churches. Like we might not need more religion nonsense. So I definitely think that, you know, the presses, right? Because we have, what about the banks, right? Financial, yeah, we have banks. And printing, we have the treasury. And the mint. Look at that. An exchange. Yeah, definitely financial exchange. I feel like we're almost done, actually. Now we just need to figure out what these places are, now that we made this list. What are we missing? Knowledge, information, library, university. What we need is, what's their version of Grand Central Station? I don't know. In fact, I'm gonna look up Grand Central Station. What type of thing is it? Is it just a train place thing? Transport hub. Also, yeah, I would say like, this could be civic. In fact, I think it probably is. So let's see. This is a huge problem I see in design all the time, is once we have categories, we trick ourselves into thinking that each one of these categories needs the same number of things. But like, for instance, so I just did a count A, right? Right, I'm only 5 away from having listed And certainly some of these, we could be basically done, except drilling down on what are these things called, right? We don't need 34 of these because there's probably more than one university. There's certainly more than one cathedral. So maybe we should just stop with this and start trying to figure out, you know, there's a bank, right? There is a treasury, there's a mint, there's a stock exchange, there's a trade exchange. This is probably in the docks, by the way. There are stables. In fact, I think stables, transport hub, definitely. And I think probably, we got post office on here. Transport hub is probably the flying carpet place. I'm just gonna write carpets. Is there anything that the church, you know, monasteries, priories, and stuff like that? Those are all just different types of church building. Some of them are like libraries. Some of them are, you know, places where documents are copied and stuff like that. But I feel like we've got a pretty good list. So let's take a second. We're going to go back to chat in a second. These are the broad categories, right? These are specific instantiations of those things, right? So a library is a knowledge information center. A university is a knowledge information center, right? And there may be more than one university, there might be one library, but forgetting things that are lower level than this, is there anything obvious that we're missing? Is there anything, a big important thing that doesn't fall into one of these categories? So definitely civic, let's put, right, people need clean water. There you go. This would definitely be probably law. Right, and I don't know what the name of it's going to be. We're probably going to have to do some offline work on that. But where the Prince's Privy Council meets. So we're no longer in the business of trying to fill out this list. The list is fine, and we have gotten, considering that we've got 33 items and we need 34, and there's probably more than one of several of these that are going to be, like there's probably 4 or 5 great manor houses that are the seats of their own, like the, you know, House Valletta's manor house is its own government, right? It's got its own CIA inside of it. It's got, so those are, you know, big important buildings. So now we're going to have to come up with what the next step is, which I'm not sure. I'm trying to think, like, if there was no chat, if we weren't live streaming, what would I be doing next? I might be figuring out which of these colors belongs to which. So let's do a little bit of work there. Can we replicate these colors in Excel? Probably. There's definitely a blue, right? There's definitely a red. Although that's not really red. Here we go. There's definitely a red. Then there's like a purple and a weird purple. And there isn't. Here we go. All right. There's that, but then there's also this kind of weird light purple, which I don't even really know what color that is in Excel. More colors. Is there a color picker? That'd be great. Hang on. I think no, it's more like. No, it's more like. I probably need better colors. And there's a green. Definitely green. There's a yellow. Definitely a yellow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Which one am I missing? Orange. There's an orange. That's going to be easy. So the 2 purple ones are kind of difficult to... So let's figure out which house belongs to which color. We definitely know that this is the docks, right? And I'm sort of curious whether there's the docks and what are the different factions. Let's get our factions down here. There's the Imperial University, the docks, the church, the Imperial Navy, the Dead Lady, the Broadsheet Guild, and the Guild of Farriers. There we go. So we can just go. Okay, that was a mistake. So we've already assigned one of these. So X754 says that the Imperial Navy is red. Yeah, that sounds good. And actually, I think that's the wrong way. I think we're using the wrong terminology here, right? Because it's not the Imperial Navy, it's House Verona. They control the Navy. But it's a mistake that, like, as House Verona has power. This is important. House Verona has power because it controls the Navy, not the other way around. I sort of feel like this is the Broadsheet Guild. The green is the Broadsheet Guild. I don't know why. I can't explain this. There's probably no actual rhyme or reason to this. I definitely do not want all the guilds to be lined up here. So I sort of feel like maybe we want to put the RASP over here. Which sort of we can justify as making sense if they control transport. And you can imagine that quadrant is, there are a lot of city gates there, a lot of people coming to and fro and then taking taxes and stuff off, that kind of stuff, tithes or whatever. So then we're left with, I think these like 1, 2, 3, 4 central powers are super important. And I think probably the Dead Lady, you guys have probably already been saying this, but I probably think House Valletta are these guys, right? Because it's that kind of, she controls more power centers than the other ones, but she's kind of neutral right now. So we have Imperial University and the church, and we have blue and the other purple, which are right next to each other. So that's good. So it's red is House Verona. So the Broadsheet Guild is really in the thick of it, right? Check that out. So we have Noble House, Noble House, Noble House, Guild. The guilds are spread out. Guild, guild, guild. Yeah, that's I like that. I like that. It's hard for them to coordinate their efforts because they're spread out over the city. These are the docks. People are going to get confused. So let me maybe this will fix it. I can tell these two colors apart, and I can tell these two colors apart, but in my mind, these two colors don't actually match these two colors. They're just the closest approximations I could come up with. So we have the Imperial University and the church. Does it really matter which is which? We have the blue, these two, Imperial University, church, Imperial University, church. I think this is the church. And it's not the church, right? It's House Navarre. Sorry. What's going on here? Okay. And then the Imperial University is run by House Alvaro. It's a good name. Some of these names are better than others. So, I feel like we're getting close to knowing a lot about this city. What do you guys think? Because I think we could probably start dragging some of these things into these areas, and we would know a lot about who controls what. So this is the point where we can't, it's terrible design. You know, I've said this before, this is a quote, consistency is the hobgoblin of tiny minds. It's terrible design to try to just make up rules and then design the game from those rules. You have to leave yourself open to discover things. This is a critical element of design. You have to leave space. This is something that we knew at Pandemic, but I don't think we had really codified it, but it was codified by the design director, my friend Chris Ashton at Turtle Rock, where he hated that process of, okay, let's come up with rules. Every one of these has 5 of these, and every one of these has 2, and every one of these, and he was like, no. That's because then we're going to end up making things for a good reason. So if we imagine like trying to make sense out of the city. Cities don't make sense. So let's just drop stuff down in a somewhat arbitrary manner and then find out what we know. So for instance, the dead lady, there's probably not a gate into the city. I mean, there might be an old gate that's closed now, but this terrain is probably like, you know, it's mountainous or it's a swamp or something over here. And this is not a great way into the city. So there may be an old gate here, right? Old gate, probably the name of a province. That's not going to be this stream. That's going to be another, there's 40 something of these little doobly-doos here that we got to name. We have to know what the names of these districts are, which we don't. And then we got to know what the names of the neighborhoods are, which we don't. And that's going to be a lot of work and probably not fun. And I might do that offline because it's just going to be a bunch of grinding through names. You need a section for the center is formerly controlled by the prince. That's true. You are right. And in fact, I should know what the name of the prince's house is, but I don't off the top of my head. And I don't think we're going to find out anytime soon. There's a huge problem with people. It doesn't see, it's not just me, because wherever I put these, people are like, those are messed up. So definitely the mausoleums are over here. So she has control over Fort. She's definitely got a great house. And she might have, oh wait, there's also the treasury. So the mausoleums are there. She has a great, in fact, most of these guys have, I'm tempted to, even though we've got all these, I think 3 of these are great manor houses. So what else does House Valletta has 4 of these. What else does she have? Maybe she's got an aqueduct. We don't have to. The prince probably controls a lot of, let's definitely figure out what the prince controls, and it's a lot, right? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. The prince controls 12 of these things. A lot. Probably the most boring ones. So I think, what types of stuff does the prince have? The prince probably has a lot of civic stuff, and the prince probably has a lot of financial stuff. So the Hall of Records is probably the prince's, right? And now we can do, the reservoir is probably the prince's. And in fact, what I want to do is I want to know when I'm done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say equals 12 minus count A of all of these. So I got 10 more I got to do. I know every time I type something in here, it's going to say, now you need that many more. So we need a lot. We need a lot. So the Privy Council is almost certainly a place, right, where the prince, that the prince controlled. Right? And now if I just hit Control 5, will it? Nope, it does the wrong one, even though this was the one that was highlighted. Let's see. There are probably several gates, right? So we could probably give the prince a gate. And that we're not going to cross that off because that's not exhaustive. Just like we're not crossing off Great Manor House. We need 8 more. Does the prince control the banks? Control the major bank, the mint? Probably, right? The mint. Be interesting. These are the things the factions are going to be fighting over. The post office, probably. I think his manor house is now, I think that was probably the Privy Council place. Yeah, he might have prison. Yeah, that sounds good. Let's see. Let's shrink this down a little bit. We're at 140%. I think that the RASP. So D&D Obsessed asks a good question. I think the RASP is FedEx. So Like anybody can use the post office, but I think you got to have a little bit of money, and then you get the seal of the rasp. Courthouse, that seems important. Barracks, that makes sense. We may, these aren't set in stone. Nothing is. We only need 3 more. What else do we have? Theater? No. Library? 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 Library, maybe. Definitely some of these. We got a whole bunch of these. Right. Let's give him... This is going to get tiny. This is going to get tiny, and I don't want it to be. I want you to be able to read it. We only need 3 more. We don't need to worry about this. Let's give him a foundry. Also gets some of these off our table. 2 more. Not the textile mill. Not slaughterhouses. University, monastery. I'd like to break these up so they're not both in House Navarre. The shipyard, the guys. No, I don't think so. Library. It's gonna be fun coming up with names for all these things. Oops, sorry. And we need 1 more, and then we're done. I think I know who controls these: the slaughterhouses, monastery, the stables, the transport hub, the exchange, the banks. A major bank. Will the entire campaign be inside the city? No, the campaign starts on another continent, and they have to cross a giant ocean. What's a rendering farm? It's where animals are boiled down into fat, and that's where you get a lot of important chemical resources. I guess we can give them the shipyard if we want. So now we know what the prince, and you can see, right, that like, this is interesting. I didn't know this. I hadn't planned on this. You guys got to watch this all live, and you guys had a big impact on this. The thing I like is that we definitely get a sense of why the prince had a lot of power, because these are all like, these aren't cultural, these are important. Like one of the gates into the city, the mint, the post office, these are all in play now. These places are all in play, and obviously they're going to want to fight over this stuff. And we know what House Valletta controls. The church obviously has a cathedral, right? Some of these we can burn pretty easily. Does that mean the church automatically has a monastery? I don't know. I guess if the document is going to complain every time so maybe everything should be 11. There we go. Fuck off. Yeah, some of these we can cross off. The theater is who controls the theater? That's a good question. I'm not going to worry about that right now. Who controls the presses? We know that. Right. The RASP controls the stables. And the transport hub. And they need one other thing. And let's give him some cultural thing, right? Maybe the RASP controls the theater. He's a great patron of the arts. Are we running out of stuff? It seems like suddenly we're running out of stuff. No. Let's give him something else. No, I want to give one of the noble houses the theater. For a lot of reasons. I want to make sure that, you know, these guys are... So what's left? The university, I think we know that the university is... Which one of these guys is the Imperial University? It's House Alvaro. House Alvaro, which is... So we already know this one, right? Shouldn't the RASP control a gate? Sure. There. Those guys are done. These guys are done. House Alvaro is almost done. We've got a lot of stuff. Somebody was talking about, aren't these the same thing? Probably. Probably. Sure, yeah. One of the reasons they have power. I doubt. I keep trying to use Control T, which is strike through in some other software. The Fulcrums should get the exchange. Sure. Wait, do they? Is the exchange already out there somewhere? Nope. And they don't have anything. The Fulcrum doesn't have anything yet. That's alarming. So I think these are probably the same thing. So we're only missing. So let's see. I don't think a monastery actually. Let's come up with something. This is a bad. What else is a religious institution besides a church? I don't. Matt does not know the answer to that. Actually, colleges often educational. What does chat think? What does chat think? Well, actually, what about people were talking about a hospital before, and I was like, do they really have hospitals in like medieval cities? Maybe, but the way we think of them, you know what I mean. But definitely a hospital seems reasonable here. Right? For now, we might go back. So House Navarre controls the cathedral. Let's give them the hospital. Why not? So now you're starting to see how these quote-unquote bad guys, a lot of people don't think of them that way, right? They control the church, they control the hospital, and in fact, I think one of the most powerful things House Navarre can do, so I think there are probably several different churches, that'd be 12. I don't mean different buildings, I mean organizations, right? The church of this saint, the church of this saint, the church of this saint. Some of them might just be a tiny little house in a street somewhere, but that's that church. But I think they all, because of how much power House Navarre has, they all kind of like, if House Navarre sneezes, all the churches get a cold. And so if House Navarre excommunicates you, suddenly you don't have access to things like cure light wounds or cure disease and stuff that the citizens of Capital can sort of depend on if something goes wrong. Their infant mortality is probably incredibly low. They probably are, as far as Capital goes, because of the power of the church, they probably are like a industrial, 20th or 21st century country when it comes to things like education and infant mortality and life expectancy. And that's because if something goes wrong, you can expect to go to the church and they'll go, bloop, you're a member in good standing. So if the church excommunicates you, now no church will deal with you. If House Navarre excommunicates you, if the Church of St. Isabel the Pitiless excommunicates you, none of the other churches are going to touch you. Because even though we're not that church, we kind of owe the fealty to those guys. They'll crush us, right? So this is where a lot of that kind of power comes from. I know how many PowerPoints each group has. They all have 3, except for House Valletta, which has 4, and of course the Prince, which is no faction, has 12. So I know that like House Rhoda, the Navy needs 3 and has none. So they get the military academy, 100%. Oh yeah, I guess like these guys need a manor house. And these guys need a manor house. What else does the Broadsheet Guild, I guess, is probably going to control the bank. Because I sort of am worried about giving other people stuff that they wouldn't have access to. The Broadsheet Guild, or was the Fulcrum? I think the Fulcrum controls the bank. Look how easy that was. Because they're the guys that paid to get these other dudes in here. And that leaves us with a noble house that needs 2 of these. So let's make sure the textile mill. Who gets the watch house? Probably these guys. Because they're great military power. And that leaves only a few more. That leaves like slaughterhouse, armory. I think probably we're not going to have armory here. Slaughterhouse and tanneries, which are kind of the same thing, I think, maybe. No, slaughterhouses is food. So actually, I want to make sure that we don't end up putting food somewhere. So I don't think the docks control the food, because the food needs to be able to get to people. So probably the Broadsheet Guild controls the slaughterhouses. Remember that these things, they don't make logical sense. You know, it's not, like the Broadsheet Guild's power is we control this area. And we didn't decide to take over the slaughterhouses. That's just part of our expanding. Like sooner or later, one house is going to control all these things. Right? When the great game finishes, hopefully in a couple of years, and people are going to grab stuff and they're going to be like, I just want that power center. I don't care what the label is. It's a power center. I want it. Right? So we shouldn't worry too much about, does it make sense for the Broadsheet Guild to control the slaughterhouses? It does to the Broadsheet Guild because it's a power center. That's number 1. Does that make sense? So I think this is the only guys left, and I think the Fulcrum gets the tannery. Yeah. Which makes sense if you know anything about tanneries. Because they smell, and you don't want them anywhere near where everybody else is. Folks had a whole bunch of really good ideas for things that would be buildings, companies, make a lot of money, and now they're like, why aren't they on the list? Why isn't this on the list? Why isn't that on the list? There's all these different neighborhoods, and each one of them has dozens of different shops and important things in them, but they're not one of the power centers that we're fighting over. So the fact that it's a black dot is more important than what this is. These could be colors, but because it helps us understand the city, we gave them names and figured out what they are. So let's not get too hung up on, why isn't this on there? Why isn't that on there? Because that's not a useful... They're all in the city. The city's got tons of cool stuff. And it's entirely possible to be super involved in the politics of the city and not even really care about a lot of this stuff because you're operating on a different level. It's entirely possible that you've got a spy network that you deploy for your own reasons that have nothing to do with controlling the university or even getting more black dots. This is not the only level or layer of politics in the city that we're going to discover. So I think we're done. I mean, we've learned a lot. We know which of these colored blocks, we got a lot more done today than I thought we were going to. This is a pretty good stream. We know which of these colored areas are controlled by which factions. We have a basic understanding of what the black dots are. What's the next stream gonna be about? I can probably just go through and drop these in here on my own. I don't think naming these things is going to be something we do on stream because that's going to be really tedious. And it's going to be tedious and non-interactive because I have my own highly developed ideas of how names should work. We'll learn a lot about the makeup of the city probably the next time we see each other, which may be even before next Saturday. I don't know. So make sure you are following. Make sure you're following, if not subscribing. Make sure you're following so you get an alert when we go live because I may just be like, well, I got nothing to do. Let's do some more streaming and figure out more about Capital. And I'd like to know what these are called, because obviously these have names, right? It's not just called the university. And I'd like to do a deep dive on each of these, on each of the factions, and learn a lot more about them. There's just a ton more to do. I'd like to go through the monster manual and say, okay, if you're a mind flayer in the city, what do you do? Who do you work for? What is that like? I don't know what percentage of Capital is human. Humans might be a minority in Capital. Like, but I don't think that they would know that. Like, I don't even know if there is a census in Capital. Like, there might be there's almost certainly a plurality. There's a plurality of humans. There's more humans than there is any other one thing, but there's not more than 50% humans in Capital, I don't think. But if you're a human living in Capital, you probably are not aware that there's a whole colony of drow that live underground. You might see one or two, but they tend to keep to themselves, right? They tend to, right? So that it's easy to live in capital and think of it as a human city, but it's not. It's a super diverse. And that diversity comes in lots of different shapes and forms. The demography thing is we're going to learn a lot about the organizations of this. You think you know a lot, we don't. There's dozens of organizations here. But then I want to go back and do a deep dive on these guys. I want to know why somebody would side with House Navarre. Well, I mean, obviously they've got some kind of charitable spirit in them. They're not. So what we've done is we've characterized the factions as being the nobles are the bad guys and the guilds are the good guys, and that is at the surface level true. But what we know is that when you dig down, it's not true. None of them are good or evil. None of these factions are good or evil. They're each dealing with their own self-interest, and they're each, in some cases, willing to do noble and self-sacrificing things for the good of the city, and they are each capable of doing stuff that is underhanded, cutthroat, and betray their principles in order to acquire power. All of them are capable of doing that. So we need to do a little bit of work on House Navarre, House Verona, and House Alvaro to make them seem cooler and more heroic. I hope you guys like the City of Capital, because I think it's definitely shaping up to be the city I thought it was. Right? We're definitely learning a lot about these cities and who's important and how they work, and it's going to be a lot of fun. All right, folks. This was the Organizations and Power Centers stream. Next one, demography. Until next time, be seeing you.